It's a local edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in the San Gabriel Valley, joined by the Mayor Pro Tem of West Covina. His name is Mike Spence. And I want to talk about West Covina and its approach to questions surrounding immigration. Many cities throughout California, in the wake of the new president's inauguration, and even before that, have been passing resolutions creating safe havens, welcoming environments, sanctuary cities, as a way to protect their undocumented population. West Covina has taken a markedly different approach. Tell us about that approach.
Well, it's the approach that we've always had, and that is if you commit a felony or if you commit a serious crime and your immigration status is you're not supposed to be here, we have no problem enforcing and turning you over to ICE.
But even more specifically, rather than pass a resolution saying that we are a welcoming city, a safe haven, sanctuary, West Covina actually passed a resolution to oppose state efforts to create, we'll call it a sanctuary state?
Right. There's a bill by Kevin De Leon, who is the head of the Democrats in the state assembly.
Right, leader, Senate Pro Tem.
And what the bill does, it's SB 54, Senate Bill 54. What it does is it usurps our local control over our police department, and it denies us the opportunity to work with or communicate or share data with the Immigration Customs Enforcement under any circumstance. So that means felonies. That means we're involved in multitask forces dealing with drug smuggling and human trafficking that we can't participate in if ICE is involved, across state lines and all this stuff. We can't participate in those. And that's why it's opposed by California state sheriffs. And we are the first the first city to go on record opposing it.
It's interesting because we do have the Trust Act, and the Trust Act says that local law enforcement cannot refer folks for holds or otherwise through ICE for minor crimes.
That's correct. That's what the state law says now.
Is West Covina complying with the Trust Act?
Of course we're complying with the Trust Act. But what we're talking about is what SB 54 does goes much further. I mean, it protects felons. It protects, drunk drivers. It protects a whole list of people or crimes.
But does it?
Yes, absolutely it does, because you can't communicate with ICE whatsoever. We can't participate in any task force that they have. And, there's sheriffs, including sheriffs that LA County and those kinds of counties that, are opposed to this. And it's because we can't participate in it. It limits our ability to protect the people of our city. And that's why we're opposed to it.
There is law as a result of a case out of Oregon which prevents those that have concluded their sentences from being held in order for ICE to take them. But I guess that's the other end of the criminal justice spectrum. What you're looking at is initial contact. What happens upon initial contact? So let's take me through this. Someone is arrested in West Covina. The crime is more than minor, I'm going to presume, because under the Trust Act, you have to comply. Mm-hmm. So do we know how we define serious? Is there a clear definition of serious?
Well, actually, I guess I don't know that answer.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But let's just, for argument's sake, it's a violent crime.
It's serious or felony.
Yeah, it's a violent crime. Someone's charged with a violent crime. What is West Covina going to do?
Well, if there's involvement first of all, it obviously depends if somebody is here that's here illegally and ICE has that information, we use that information.
Right, but that's the question, because there's a difference if ICE contacts West Covina.
Oh, we would contact ICE if someone's not supposed to be here.
And that's the question, because
and work with ICE and share data with ICE so that they have that information.
So are your police officers affirmatively going to be seeking immigration information?
They don't do that now, as you pointed out with the Trust Act.
But the Trust Act, yeah.
But if somebody doesn't have identification, and then immigration status is open to be discussed. And
so, under current policy, West Covina would contact immigration.
Well, we would at least access their databases. I mean, there's lots of different things that are limited by SB 54, even just the sharing of data.
SB 54 is the Trust Act.
Yeah, no, SB 54 is the bill that we oppose.
But that's not law now.
That's not the Trust Act. That's not law now. Right, and that's why we opposed it.
Right, but under current law.
There's data that we can access. And like I said, West Covina Police Department participates in some multi-city
Right.
and jurisdictions across state lines, investigations dealing with drug trafficking and human trafficking, and ICE is sometimes
Right.
part of that, because that's obviously a very important component.
Here are some of the concerns that I've heard with regard to that policy. I don't think anyone wants someone who's a criminal that's undocumented to be here.
Oh, well, the state legislature would tell you otherwise.
Be that as it may, I think what the concern is that if individuals, whether they're documented or not, believe that local law enforcement is working with immigration, they will not want to interact with with local law enforcement at all. Imagine, and I read this in the Los Angeles Times, there was two individuals who were witnesses to a crime, both documented, but they refused to interact with the police because they just were afraid that even though they're documented, they have an undocumented relative, and that would just cause the undocumented relative to get brought into the equation. So I just ask you, are you concerned about that the unwillingness to interact with local law enforcement?
Well, I think that's a problem, as you just pointed out, regardless of whether or not someone's documented. There are people that refuse. No, you just said those people were documented and they didn't want to participate because they thought something might happen.
Right, but that was in the wake of the Trump victory.
No, but that's actually an excuse that people use all the time.
But
and in fact, there's people that are here that are undocumented or documented. Depends on, since people have driver's license, I'm not sure.
But we know what
that means. They are victims of crime. These illegal aliens do prey on other illegal aliens.
Right.
And so it's important, they don't care what your immigration status is if they're a violent felon. They'll take you out if you're a citizen, or they'll take you out if you're an illegal alien. And so it's important, and in fact, the illegal alien community is exploited here in California.
Right, but for example,
it's for them to say that, victims don't get thrown in jail. Victims don't get turned over to ICE. So to say that somehow cooperating with the police will lead to a deportation order doesn't make sense if you're a victim of a crime. What doesn't make sense is, why would you leave someone that violent or someone that's committed serious crimes in the community?
But again, what I'm talking about is the interaction between law-abiding individuals
and people need to trust the police. They're going to take care of criminals and not just run around running for stuff.
But they're not. I mean, they're not.
And that happens in different communities. No, I don't think there's studies that can actually distinguish because of being able to figure out what crimes don't get reported, because that's usually a self-reported
Kamala
thing.
Harris, let me interrupt.
But
Kamala
there are
Harris
places that don't have large amount of immigration in cities that people don't report now.
Right, but
the African American community.
Kamala Harris, the U.S. Senator, made a statement that 40% of Latinos are less willing to interact with law enforcement because of fear of immigration matters. And PolitiFact looked at that, and they said that her statement was mostly true. So what we know is mostly true. So again, but my point is that either anecdotally or study-wise, it does appear that is a challenge.
That's a challenge, and but people that want to get criminals off the streets need to work with the police department. And one tool to get criminals off the street is to cooperate with the Immigration Customs Enforcement. And to deny the police the opportunity in human trafficking, drug trafficking cases, as well as violent crimes, to participate or to work with them is a ridiculous way to deal with law enforcement.
He is Mike Spence. He is the Mayor Pro Tem of the city of West Covina. My name is Brad Pomerance. We thank you for joining us on Local Edition.